Okay, so I'm just going to be reviewing De Bello Gallico by Julius Caesar, chapter 24 of book 4. I have finals coming up, so hee hee. Alright, I usually start off by finding my verbs and I underline my verbs. So we've got consuerent, which means like we're accustomed. It is perfect. We've got prohibebant. It is imperfect, plural, again, and it means like preventing, we're preventing. We've got erat, which is an equal verb because it just means like was. We've got poterant, we're able. We've got I hate Caesar for. We've got incitarvent, they incited, and I think that's in a might be subjunctive, I don't know. And then we have utebantur. Alright, so I think I know what most of these verbs mean, so we can move on. We've got ot, which is a sharp but the barbarians, with the plan of the Romans having been known or learned, and with the cavalry having been sent ahead, and the I usually have a endings chart handy for when I don't really know. So then we have, and the war chariots, we have a clause. So I'm assuming this is going to be ablative, and it's going to agree with genera, like, which means type, kind, class, referring again to the chariots. So that's the antecedent. This is an ablative. And because we have uti here, which is a puffy verb, these are verbs that take the ablative case instead of the accusative case. So quo genera is going to be ablative object or ablative object. And of course the consuerant, that's going to be the action performed by the barbarians. So it's going to be which type they were accustomed to using in battle. And again, it's going to be which type, in parentheses implied, of chariots. Or some people might say that the Essadaris are a type of warriors. That could also be it. I usually just say it's war chariots. Alright, then we have the next part of this sentence. It is reliquis copii subsecuti nostros navibus egredi prohibebant. The subsecuti is going to be our nominative, and again, that is referring back to the barbarians, they having followed our men, or they having followed with their remaining things. That's usually what I use for copia. So they having followed, we're inhibiting, preventing our men from leaving, or they were preventing the departure from their ships. So the barbarians were kind of blocking the Romans, not allowing them to exit their ships. So let's go over this whole sentence again. But the barbarians, with the plan of the Romans having been known, and with the cavalry having been sent ahead, and their war chariots, which type they were accustomed to using in battle, they having followed with the remaining things, were preventing our men from leaving from their ships. Okay, we go on to the next sentence. Erat ob has causas summa difficultas. This is going to be for these reasons. It was very difficult because, and this is going to be kind of following the context, instead of being a qui qui quod pronoun, it's going to be a because. We're looking for a a plural subject, a plural nominative. The only word that could fit into that is naves. So because the ships, on account of their size, were not able to be positioned unless in deep. And when Caesar uses alto, that really means deep water. Okay. This is going to be a kind of however. I'm going to ignore militibus right now because I don't know if it's ablative or dative so far. Ignotis locis, I think that's going to be probably an ablative absolute. So with the location being unknown, having been unknown by the Roman soldiers. And again, with their hands having been impeded, so they don't really know what to do. Magno et gravi onera, that's going to be, again, ablative. Armorum is going to be genitive, and I think it goes with onera, that means burden. So, precis, simul, that's at the same time, and de navibus, de ciliandum, that is either a gerund or a gerundive, and we're gonna see, we're gonna have to skip ahead to see what it is exactly. And because we have this erat verb, I think it's gonna be a gerundive of purpose, so it was necessary to jump from the ships. And in the waves, in the waves, it was necessary to stand together in the waves. So this is going to be a gerundive, and it was necessary to fight with the enemies. Again, a gerundive. So we go back and we say militibus oppressis are words that we still haven't identified. So I'm gonna say that because these are gerundives of purpose, they're usually also accompanied by datives. So it was necessary for the soldiers, and these two words are going to agree, for the soldiers having been oppressed to simultaneously jump from the ships, stand in the waves, and fight with the enemies. Okay, then we have cum illi out. Out is going to be our or. Ex arido, out. Paulum in aquam. Paulum is our adverb, scarcely. In aquam progressi omnibus membris expeditis notissimis locis, audacter tele coi querent, I missed the verb there, and equos in sue factos incitarent. This is going to be accusative because of those endings. And I think this is going to be a cum clause. We just have to decide what cum means in this context. I don't think it's going to be when, simply, relating back to the previous context of those whole gerundive situations. So it might be an although, it might be a since. Illy is going to be nominative. So I think it's either going to be the Romans or the barbarians, the Gauls. So I'm going to fill in with they either out of the, or from the dry land, or into, this is going to be an into the water. Progressi might agree with illi, nominative. Omnibus membris expeditis. I feel like all those words agree with each other, so I'm going to make them ablative absolutes. That's usually what I do when I see a bunch of ablatives in a Caesar text. Notissimis locis, again, same thing here. Audacter, boldly. Tella, that's going to be accusative because it doesn't agree with any of the nominatives. And I think that's a neuter word, meaning like weapons. Okay, so coicerent. I don't really remember what coicerent means, but it means throw. I always get confused by those yakura yakti words. So it means throw. So they, having moved forward, were throwing. So these are subjunctive verbs. They were throwing either from dry land or a little into the water. Or actually, it might be more like they, having moved forward either from dry land or a little into the water with all their limbs having been, I don't know, what could we say here? They having advanced either from dry land or a little into the water with their limbs having been expeditis. Let me look that up real quick. I forgot what it means. All right. So set free or unencumbered. So their limbs having been unencumbered, that just means that they're carrying light weapons. They were very well aware of the location. If we remember over here, the Romans are unaware of the location. And if these people are, they're very familiar with it, then the illi and the progressi has to refer to the barbarians. And because of that, I'm going to say that this cum means since. Okay. Audacter, I'm pretty sure it means boldly. They were throwing their weapons boldly, having advanced either from dry land or a little into the water with all their limbs having been unencumbered and very familiar with the location. And they were inciting their horses, having been trained. So these horses were trained specifically to fight kind of like seaside in the water, something that the Romans have very little experience with. So the Romans are struggling so far. They're being forced to jump from their ships. Their ships are way too big that they can't really dock in shallow water, so they have to stay kind of where the water's still pretty deep and jump from there. They don't really know the location. They're not familiar with the terrain. Their hands are encumbered as opposed to unencumbered. So they've got their shields, their weapons, they're encumbered probably they're oppressed also by the great and heavy burden of their armor. So, they've got their shields, they've got their swords, etc., etc. And yeah. And all of these things are happening. They're being forced to fight since the enemies, the barbarians, they have progressed from the dry land into the water, and they're throwing weapons at them boldly. Okay, moving on. So now we've got quibus rebus. That's going to be ablative. With these things having, I don't really remember how to translate this, but it's just like a common Caesarism thing. Que nostri perterriti, huius omnino generis pugnae imperiti. So all of these words sound like they agree. Non eodem, that's ablative of the same. It's gonna have to agree with something else that's also ablative. Alacritata, ac, that's another and. Studio quo in pedestribus uti. There's that word again, preliis consuerant. So there's two verbs side by side. One of them is going to be a part of this clause. So again, this is going to be our ablative object because of uti. And we've got nostri perterriti and imperiti, I think, are going to be our nominatives. So then we're going to have some more accusative or ablative objects because of the utebantur as our main verb. So probably going to be something like omnino eodem, or actually omnino is a adverb, and I think this is going to be our ablative object, this whole thing of the same kind of speed and knowledge, the same speed and experience. Pugnae generis, that sounds genitive. And huius is also going to be genitive. So huius generis pugnae. They're gonna agree with something over there. Uti proeliis, quo in pedestribus. I don't really know. I'm gonna ignore this last line, honestly. I'm a little bit out of my comfort zone. I don't like Caesar. I don't like Virgil. I don't like anything. It's interesting, I guess, but I'm not really vibing with it. So anyways, imperiti is the opposite of experti. So it's gonna be like unskilled. So our men are unskilled and kind of spooked. They're scared by these things, by these things. So they're scared by, the horses that are just like charging into the water, the barbarians throwing weapons into them, and they are using the same speed and skill of the type of fight. Or, I don't know. I don't really know. Anyways, the point is that they're kind of like on the same level now, on the same playing field. A little bit out of their comfort zone, but they're fighting bravely and they are used to fighting kind of like on their feet in battles. So it's going to be ablative. And that's not going to be an ablative object, I don't think. Oh, okay, I got it. They're fighting. They are using the same, hold on. They're using our men. They're kind of scared. They're unskilled, but they're not using the same skill or the same speed and kind of skill with which they are accustomed to using in foot battles, in the battles, on foot, on land. That's what it's trying to say. This whole section right here, I don't know. I'm gonna ignore it. I'm moving on.